Hey, we are back for another episode of RevivalCast. We've got two devs with us, Snipehunter and Ombwah. And we're going to talk today about the new blog, which is on tagging. And we'll also we are back for another episode of RevivalCast. It's about the new skills that were dropped from IRC into the forums. What else happened in IRC this week, Sail? Anything?
Gosh, did anything super neat happen? I mean, aside from just what normally happens. I don't know. My mind is so focused on the blog, I can't think of anything else. There's just this giant event horizon in my memory.
Okay,
like
mind-blowing
before
stuff.
blog, after blog. The new reckoning has arrived in my mind. I can't deal with it.
It's almost always a new reckoning after we get a blog.
Oh, as it should be. As it should be.
That's kind of the wild thing about having the devs so active in the forums is that week to week we almost have a completely new game, just in terms of ideas. What about you, Chesh? We have a significant change for you, it looks like.
Yeah, a bunch of things have been going on besides the whole new guild thing I've personally got going on in IRC is where we got the huge skill drop, and I am super excited for that. I asked a lot of questions about necromancy too, due to the whole shift in what I am doing. Blame Ark for that, by the way. Huh?
Necrodancy, actually, yeah.
Yeah, gonna be the world Theliston's first necrodancer right here. Let's see. Oh, and something that dropped in the forums that's also got me super excited is the master profession skills that Snipe talked about.
Yep.
Oh,
and I think it's been dropped before. One of those master profession skills is the shipwright skill.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, so we do have at least one master profession skill. I'm adding that to my thread already, right now.
Cool. Do you guys want to start talking about skills, or do you want to save that for later? What do you guys want to start with? What do you and Ombwah, Snipe? What do you guys want to start with? I have a few questions about some of the details of some of the names, like augmentation and cosmicism on the skills. But you want to start with tags, or you want to field some skills?
We can talk skills for a little bit. I'm cool.
Cool.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, so we just had some cool names that I just don't know what any of these do. So I have about 10 skills I'm curious about. Augmentation. What does augmentation do?
Augmentation is like enhancement of existing properties on people, objects. So like if you wanted to make somebody stronger than normal, augmentation is one of the magic skills that you could use to do that.
Correct. It's a magic skill.
And would that apply to? I don't know how to. That applies to attributes. That applies to
all kinds of properties, actually.
Okay.
So in a more generic setting, it's basically the buff magic skill.
Yeah.
But what you can actually augment really depends on which of the gods you use your augmentation skill with.
Oh, okay.
Right. So
cool. That makes sense.
Correct.
So different gods augment different things, basically.
Right. Some of the powers don't have any wheelhouse over certain attributes or certain things, whereas others do. So yeah.
Cool. That's gonna be some interesting exploration. I'm gonna want to see who will augment the stank attribute.
Yep. I augment your flunk.
That's interesting. Okay, and then chanting. What's the difference between chanting and channeling?
They're actually really closely related. So chanting is actually sort of a hybrid between basic like single person channeling and larger scale real magic. But it's based in wow, I just went all max headroom for a second there. It's based in all like what's the word I'm looking for? Sonic. So it's all audio, right? And so they're susceptible to being silenced on the battlefield, but they can also do things like, the Jericho style, knock down a wall with a chant, or imbue an entire regiment of people with morale and courage and unflaggable fatigue. So chanting is kind of like it's where bard magic would be if there was bard magic.
That's the word I was about to use, bard magic.
So I'm gonna segue just a little bit. I have some other skills that I'm curious about, but we had a drop a while ago that said that there's skills associated with performers, actors, dancers, bards, and buskers.
Absolutely.
But I don't know what the names of those are. Those are missing from Cheshire's skill list. So chanting is the skill associated with bards, or are there more? Is there other skills?
There's more. So there's actually a whole suite of performance-related skills. There's dancing, there's singing, there's composition, and there's performance. And performance is like playing musical instruments.
Right. And we would like to be able to link all those in so that you could play original compositions. We just we haven't got
Dancing,
that
singing.
nailed down how we're going to do that yet. But we'd absolutely like you to make your own compositions in game.
And is busking the name of a skill, or is there a suite associated with the buskings with the busker as well?
Busking is actually a combination of the begging skill and one of the performance skills. Busking is like dancing on the street for your money or singing on the street for your money instead of just outright begging for it.
Okay.
I take my arch lute and I perch upon the fountain in the square.
Exactly.
Correct. Exactly. That's the one.
And then acting is a skill. What's a couple of the skills for the actors? How do you envision an actor differently than?
So there's a set of skills that for lack of a better word, are charisma based. There's haggling, contracting, gossip. Oh crap! There's two more, and I'm literally drawing a blank on my own damn skills. It's so embarrassing. But there's two more, and so acting is sort of a combination of performance, which is our sort of like basic, any performance related art that doesn't have an explicit skill, and then the various charisma based skills that you might use in conjunction with that. Disguise actually plays to acting as well. In that, a good actor should also be a master of disguise because that's how they step into their roles.
Gotcha. Okay. Did you catch all that, Cheshire? Do we need to go over any more so you can write those down? Do we need to?
What were those?
Haggling.
Haggling, acting, dancing, singing.
Yeah. Okay. Technically, here. You know what? I'll just read you the list off.
I was gonna say, Google Docs is only a click away.
Yeah, it's musicianship, dancing, persuasion, begging, prostitution, speechcraft, pimping, and sex.
Oh, pimping is a separate.
I can't type that fast.
I am literally.
Just copy paste it for me.
I am literally going to run out of alts that I can do because pimping is pushing another character.
Hey man, pimping ain't easy.
I'm saying.
Pimp strong.
I might actually run into a limit.
A pimp's love is unlike anyone else's love.
Ooh, for sure. And for free. And then, what's the difference between empowering and augmentation?
So empowering you can do. So augmentation is a form of invocation. You're calling in power from outside of yourself, and you're imbuing it into other things. In a way, it's kind of a channeling skill, but we don't use channeling for it. It's not what I mean when I say that.
Right.
Empowerment.
All the jargon.
Right. Empowerment is kind of the evocation version of the same, right? It is by will alone I set my mind in motion, right? It is the ego-based version of augmentation in a way.
Okay. How does mask making play in it all? Do masks confer any I don't know, stats or skills, or is it purely cosmetic, or?
It's mostly cosmetic. It actually plays into disguise in that it's a lot easier to maintain an alias with a mask, provided that that mask, supports the alias. And the alias system is honestly still being worked on because it's a little overly complicated right now. But the idea is that, when you build a false identity, you create a set of attributes that you're trying to portray. I want to be intimidating. I want to be comical. I want to be charismatic, right? And so there are masks with properties based on the type of mask and the quality of their reproduction that enhance those aspects of your identity.
Cool.
And so mask making is basically the skill of creating those masks.
Interesting.
So does that extend even to the like Carnival and stuff, right? Like I go set up my Count of Monte Cristo, dance party, and we've all got masks on. And
Absolutely, man.
Absolutely.
That'd be so rad.
Yeah. So you said it affects charisma. What else does it affect? Charisma.
Nameplate.
Yeah. But you were saying like influence. Like there's different types of.
Right, and they're more like character archetypes than specific skills. So they're like, you can be intimidating.
Yeah.
You can be charismatic. You can be frightening.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's cool.
What we call silly. It's clownish. If you want to be like a jester.
Right.
Right, but they're not like actual like skills or anything. They're just properties that are part of the tagging system.
Gotcha. Yeah, we need because we don't have terms for all of these different things. So properties. I got you. That sounds good. Then what's the difference between fleshcraft and flesh mending, and would people be using both?
Yeah. Okay. So fleshcraft is the like, Dr. West from Reanimator. Right.
It's the icky stuff.
Right. It's the gross craft where you build the monster that is all hands, right, or the thing with 10,000 mouths, or whatever. Flesh mending is like healing, right? It's literally mending flesh.
Healing, sewing people up.
So if I were gonna create a transgender person and I wanted to actually go transsexual, would I use both of those? What do you think?
You'd almost have to, yeah.
Okay.
And that's interesting too. I hadn't considered that.
Yeah, I have to admit I hadn't considered it that way. In fact, I was thinking that maybe flesh crafting would be a higher level unlock from flesh mending. So you would learn basic surgery, etc., like actual, and then you could move into stuff like golem making and the more weird reanimator stuff at a higher level of proficiency. It just that seemed the natural progression in my mind, anyway.
That makes sense. And then primalism.
So primalism is sort of like dealing with Nodens and anime at the most basic level, right? So where elementalism is Nodens' realm, primalism is anime's realm. Primalism is pure life, pure death, raw nature, untamed growth.
Untempered by intellect or reason or, the raw stuff of life.
Okay.
So, for example, if one ever wanted to become a druid, which is actually one of the master professions in the game, one of the skills that you will have to master is primalism.
Gotcha. Okay. Nature, it's like primal nature.
Right, exactly.
Okay, gotcha. So there's scouting, recruiting, and then recruiting is kind of new, I think. I remember scouting, but I don't remember recruiting. And why are those two kind of related? And
actually, I should probably explain. Scouting in the sense of like trailblazing and the like is now in a skill called pathfinding, right?
Okay.
So scouting in this sense is like the ability to judge talent from a distance. Like the con command from EQ1.
Okay. Interesting.
And it's paired with recruiting because recruiting is the ability to spot those people and then get them to join your cause, right?
And then, but is that still separate from logistics?
Yeah, logistics is your ability to actually manage the people that you hire or buy, that kind of thing, right? Whereas recruiting and scouting is your ability to size up their value to you, basically.
That's really interesting.
So, recruiting and scouting, are they the same skill, or you said something about pathfinding?
Pathfinding is different.
Right. So pathfinding is, the ability to spot game trails, the ability to, to recognize dangers in terrain around you. So it's the classic scout skill, but recruiting is the classic baseball scout skill. Do you see what I'm saying?
Okay, so those are two separate skills: pathfinding and recruiting.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Scouting.
Sweet.
So,
and then go ahead.
So does the scouting and recruiting, does that effectively work as a form of one-on-one remote divination? Do you have to read? Well, I guess not tags, but reading. What exactly do you read if you're scouting someone, right? If I'm,
so if you were to pop your study skill and click on a person, what would happen? Assuming that that person didn't have a false identity, in which case investigation actually takes higher precedence, but that's a different story. If you were to just idly look at somebody and sort of be like, what's that guy about? Pop study and click on the guy. What you would get back is sort of a basic read of that person's apparent mood or attitude, that person's apparent physical attributes, and any of the very obvious tags that you could discern by looking at somebody. Oh, that guy's of Caucasian descent, that kind of thing. You could say, at the higher levels, it's things like, I can tell from the way he's holding that sword that guy's a master at this art, right?
Yeah, he knows X stance or that kind of thing.
Gotcha. Cool.
And then sorcery is what? It's magic related, but I don't know how that applies to Revival's concept of magic.
Yeah, and it's perhaps maybe not exactly a mirror to other games that have used the word. Sorcery is sort of akin to, what's the right way to put it? I guess witchcraft. It's an evocation skill, so it's another one of those applications of ego towards warping reality around you.
Right. Sorcery is the magic that you use your will to make stuff happen, rather than using someone else's, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So if I were summoning a fireball and I wasn't calling on Nodens or Thuga, I was just willing a fireball into existence, right? That would be sorcery.
Right.
That's going to cost you some lifespan, tell you what.
Oh, hell yeah.
Interesting. And different also from calling on using the ley line or something like that. I think we've had some indication that one of the ways to travel, maybe planeswalk, is by tapping the ley line.
Right, and that's literally the skill of tapping.
Yeah. Oh, okay. And then, but this would also, so sorcery would be drawing from our own magic, or is it spirit or lifespan? Those are two different things, huh?
It is, and it would actually depend on what you were doing. So, a fireball would burn lifespan. But, for example, if you're going to use sorcery to compel someone to feel fear, that might take spirit.
Okay.
Right, and spirit might be the limit of your power. Might have something to do with the magnitude of what you can do, whereas your lifespan would end up being more because it's sorcery, more like a fuel in a way. Not that you could choose how much to use, but more that if you are a sorcerer and you're not calling on Nodens to make the fire, your spirit will limit the size of the fireball, but your lifespan will be the fuel that you burn. Kind of behind the scenes, we're not going to be like, you just lost 15 life. It's just going to happen, and more like a fuel.
So you might not want to. You might want to think about how you're using the fireballs during a siege, because you might not have enough life. It might not be worth it. You might not be around long enough after that to enjoy the spoils of your super fireball.
Exactly. Man, all this fighting really just takes it right out of me.
The candle that burns twice as bright, half as long.
So, okay. That's neat.
And then my final one that I was interested in was resistance.
Yep. So resistance is, in a way, it's your classical, like, resistance to fire, resistance to poison, all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
But the mechanic is really more along the lines of, it is the strength of your ability to deny the reality around you.
Wow, that's a thought-provoking concept. Wow. Okay.
And is that primarily self buffs, or is it possible to use resistance magic on other people at a certain point?
At the moment, it's all based on yourself, but we're not opposed to the idea of being able to cast resistances on other people. It's just more working out the mechanic of how that would happen, right? So like in game right now, you can use resistance to make spells miss you, and I don't necessarily want you to be able to confer that ability to just anybody, because we want you to work hard to earn that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, it almost sounds like self-hypnosis of a type to me.
Yeah, in a way, absolutely. It's it is a solipsism
Like
at its finest.
I disbelieve.
Miss me, nanner, nanner, nanner.
You're not real. I don't believe in you.
Yeah. So that could move us into the master skills. And I thought it was interesting that it was phrased as master profession skills. But one of the things that we were wondering, I think Rose was wondering, is I guess like how many master skills you can have. So is it that you would have, would you have a max of 2 base skills, and then a master skill would count as the third skill in terms of what you could have maxed, or would it be three, or would it be 3 maxed skills and then you have a couple of other
in truth skills? So it's up to you which 3 skills you pin. So if you wanted to push 2 skills to unlock a master skill and then master that skill and pin it, you could leave the ones that were underneath it unpinned and you would not lose your master skill. Right. So there's sort of a strategy in how you pin your skills involved. Generally speaking, though, what I honestly expect people will do is they'll pin basic skills and leave their master skills where they are, because they'll be using them so often that they'll never be the skill that loses points anyway. So it's kind of a waste of your pin to put it there.
Right.
But on the other hand, if you wanted to try to push, 2 master professions, the way to do that would be to master the skills related for one profession, pin the master skill of that profession, unpin the skills that led up to it, and then try to work on a new skill to do the same thing with the second profession.
Right, try to push that other one out.
Right.
So you could possibly have 3 master professions.
At the max. That's going to take a really long time and a lot of work. But that is absolutely...
That's going to be a lot of work, man. Theoretically, systems allow for it, but that's going to be tough.
And then we were kind of wondering about the combinations of these skills, and Rose kind of brought up would cooking plus necromancy lead to a master skill in something? How
I think that would lead to something gross, personally.
Death Chef 9000.
Because it seems to me like any combination of basic skills could potentially open up a master skill. But is that what you guys are thinking, or? Yeah,
there are actually specific skills, and I admit that there isn't one that involves both cooking and necromancy. But so like right now, I'm literally staring at a spreadsheet which has 34 master professions on, and each one requires anywhere from 1 to 4 different skills to hit mastery. So by default, some of these are literally impossible to attain, and I wonder what that implies. Anyway, so for example, some of these are mundane, right? So like is a profession, and if you master begging, eavesdropping, and pickpocket, you can unlock the urchin skill, and that allows you to do things like command other urchins as if they were in your guild, because there's the brotherhood of beggars and that kind of thing, right? And that's the other thing. Each of these, the reason we call them professions,
start your own little gang.
Right. That's precisely the point, right? The reason that we call these professions is because once you unlock the skill, there's a whole suite of abilities and stuff that go with it that are unique to the combination of things you mastered to get there.
Gotcha.
And then some of them are like fantastic. So, for example, there's Beastmaster, and Beastmaster is animal lore, animal husbandry, and taming. But as a Beastmaster, you can do things that normally only mages would be able to do, like see through the eyes of one of your animals or directly possess one of your animals. And you can do that, without magic, just from the bond that you have with the animals that you control.
Right. Build your own little gang of cats.
Right.
Nice.
Yep. I can't wait until we have the literal cat fights in the street that are, I was possessing my cat walking down the street, and I noticed that you were possessing a cat walking down the street, and there we are, cat fight, the game.
Nice. My cat stance. Meow! Literally
Exactly.
go into the meow. Mhm.
That'd be awesome. I want to see it. I think it'll be hilarious.
And
Do you
before
prefer
this
the
devolves
standard, or do you
into
prefer the high
Pokemon
arch,
Simulator.
right?
Exactly.
Who doesn't want to be McGonagall sitting there at the beginning of the front of the street looking at us hanging?
Guys, what other questions do you guys have on skills?
So if some of them are unattainable by players, insofar as they require certain minimum numerical, marks that can't be reached, then are we looking at well, no. You see, I'm just going to float this. I'm just going to float the idea that someone might have an idea about what that might mean. And then I'm just going to let people think about it and torture themselves because it's great. But cool, so there are some that we can't get. I like this. I like this a lot. I like this a very lot.
Or what if we can get them, but they're a team effort type thing?
Some
Power Twins, power activate. Form of Cthulhu, shape of Hydra.
One of you has to be made of water.
Hydra,
Form
right?
of Cthulhu, shape of a bucket
Do
of
you
water.
know your Greek, young man? Do you know your Greek?
But it'll be a bucket of maddening water. So be
Exactly.
careful.
The puddle of madness.
Form of a slippery puddle of ice.
Well,
man.
we took up way more time on skills than I was hoping to, but it's pretty fascinating.
There are a lot of skills.
Let's move over to tags, and maybe we should start by having one of you describe the concept of tags for those who are joining us without having read the blog.
Yeah, okay. I guess I'll do that since I wrote the system.
Systems guy.
So tags are a way of they do a lot of things, but at their basic level, they're a way of adding, to use the phrase, properties to players, items, NPCs, really anything in the world. And at their basic level, a tag is literally, a word, like a hashtag on Twitter, right? So
It's a dungeon master's note, like a DM's note.
That's actually a really good metaphor for because basically, you can say like, oh, this guy touched the sunstone, and we can tag him with touch sunstone, right? There's some mechanical stuff that happens behind the scenes, but basically, when a player gets a tag, it goes into this list of tags that they have that we call a queue, right? And they're a fixed number. I'm not going to ever tell you what that number is. It's pretty large, though. But there's a fixed number, and they stay in the queue for as long as they're referenced, right? So anytime you reference a tag that's in the queue, it gets pulled from its position in the queue and put back on the top, which we call freshening. And this basically means it'll stay in the queue longer. And that's good, because if the queue ever fills up, then the tag at the front of the queue drops off as if the character had forgotten about it, or as if that thing no longer influenced the character in any meaningful way. In reality, they can do a lot more. But what we basically use them for are things like, hey, this NPC has a line of dialogue, but they'll only tell it to somebody they know has touched the sunstone. Then we would mark that dialogue with that same touch sunstone tag, and then the NPC would only be able to talk about it with somebody who had that tag as well, right?
Right.
And we use these for like spell conditions, NPC relationships, dialogue, opportunities, adventure events, all kinds of things. You might be in a dungeon and you might end up at a dead end, and you might have no idea that there's something up further, but then somebody else could wander in who has that, touch sunstone tag, and all of a sudden the wall would light up with ancient runes and reveal that there's a puzzle to opening the secret door there that you would otherwise never have seen.
Right, because the collision trigger, like mechanically, that revealed that stuff was looking for that particular has touch sunstone tag, and it doesn't matter how many players go down there and collide with that invisibly. If you don't have that tag, you're never going to see the runes, whatever. When that guy shows up, then we play the animation that lights it all up with particles, and it appears. And if that guy had touched the sunstone, say 6 months ago, but hadn't popped that tag off somehow, had been reading about the sunstone and keeping that tag fresh or something. He may or may not even know that it was him, or that was why. It may just be that he showed up just in time.
Right, and that's the trick, right? Players will never directly see the tags that are attached to their characters. Really, they'll never see the tags directly attached to anything. There are a couple of ways to get references to them. The tarot card reading from the astrologer blog being a really good example of that, right? So if I realize that something's up with my character, I can go to somebody who has a divination skill and ask for a reading, right?
And you'll get a sidelong glance, sort of, at the tags.
Right.
You can look at the shape.
Well, what you'll get is they'll pull cards that are associated with tags that you have in your queue, and how accurate the cards they pull match the tags that you have depends on their divination skill. So, one of our examples is you might go to a diviner, and the diviner will pull a card that is like Eaten by Cthulhu, and then pull another card that is like Hero of the People, and then pull another card that was like Had a Sandwich on Tuesday. And you'd be like, what the hell? I didn't have a sandwich on Tuesday. This is worthless, right? Because it turns out their divination skill just wasn't that great, On the other hand, they might be really, really good at it, and you'll be going, God, what do they mean by had a sandwich on Tuesday? I didn't have a sandwich on Tuesday. Right, that's the trick. You don't know what the actual tags are. You only know that there are these symbolic cards that somehow reference the tags that are on your character.
Correct.
But yeah, so to get back to the main point, at their basic level, tags are a content gating system, right? They're a way for us to decide which content every player sees based on the conditions of the play has sort of attached to them. However, they're a lot more complicated than that. And the reason for that is that every tag has attached to it one or more what we call game effect packages. And game effect packages are like little scripts written by the content team that dictate things that happen to the objects, people, or characters that have these tags attached to them. And they can do all kinds of things, from manipulating the tags in your queue, setting flags, clearing flags, casting spells on people, changing the way people think about you, right? Like, anything a storyteller can do can be commanded in a game effects package, right? And so you could have a tag that was like cursed, and the curse tag might say, hey, every 20 minutes, refresh the curse tag unless you also possess the tag blessed, right?
Right.
And then it might have another game effect package on it that says, oh, and by the way, anytime it's a blood moon, why don't you just go ahead and start throwing up? Really just non-stop.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Because you have that curse and it's blood moon now, it's time for the plague to occur.
Right. And so we can do all kinds of things with them that you don't normally see in MMOs. We can have all sorts of ephemeral, tiny bits of content, and together they'll dictate sort of the experience that your character plays under. And since you game the tags with things you do, in a way, you are the cause of your own suffering or joy, depending on what happens.
Yeah, go ahead.
I could also, in the effects package for the plague, for every time your character, has emesis, I can attach the plagued tag to anyone within a particular radius of you as that happens, and then, excitement then happens afterwards. Yay, adventure!
Amarnra had this really in-depth kind of question, comment, rebuttal in that on the forums, and one of the things that was posited was what happens if the player is gone on a break for 5 years and comes back, and seemingly that tag is still around because
Right.
it hasn't been removed out of the queue. But I was thinking that it is kind of conditional, right? If the blood moon has already passed, then that situation isn't going to be around anymore, or may not still be active.
Absolutely.
So
Those
if the
game
story
effect
has moved
packages.
on, yeah.
Yeah, those game effect packages. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but those game effect packages that I mentioned can all have conditional triggers on them, right? And those triggers can be super simple, literally, hey, is the blood moon up? In which case, do this thing. Or they can be incredibly complex. They can be, this tag has been in the queue for X amount of time. This tag has been refreshed for, Y number of refreshments. This tag in the presence of someone who has another tag who also has the third tag, right? And those conditions sort of dictate how the tags themselves behave. So some tags, if you were to log in 25 years later, they might still be because it makes sense for them to still be there. Other tags might go, okay, wait a minute, I've been alive for 25 years, that's ridiculous. It might just remove itself from the queue without, ever commenting on it.
And also, wouldn't it be, amusing if someone with Blood Moon Plague logged out for a long period and then came back and everyone had thought the Blood Moon Plague had been cured and gone, and now you have Patient Zero all over again. Yay, content.
That's really interesting. So yeah, I mean, I think it kind of depends on. I think you alluded to that. Does it make sense for that tag to still be active? Are the NPCs still in the same state that they were in 5 years ago? Are the storylines still in play? All of those things could change, and therefore what you had 5 years ago might not. And what I'm hearing is that if that's the case, they might spontaneously fall out of the queue themselves.
Right. Or not. Like, it really depends on what the content designers want to do.
Yeah.
But
and then somebody was, I think it was Amarnra was thinking too, about, I think the example was reading a book versus maybe having attacked or killed some monster,
right.
And how often those would refresh, or how I think there was a lack of comprehending that about the refreshing. So, it depends on how often you're doing stuff with that tag, right? Whether or not it will drop off. So if you are doing things that are involved with something from reading the book, that reading that book opened up a quest line and you're actively pursuing that quest line, then that tag might stay.
Will likely stick around, absolutely, yeah. And that's kind of how quests work. I mean, more than once we've said that players don't really have quests, except in your mind, but the world has quests, and that's kind of how we can keep you on your journey. Is the more you go investigate a particular thing and hit up that same content, the more times you're going to get tags related to that focus into your thing, and so the world will react to you as though you are a seeker of those things. And I mean, it's part and parcel to how we're making adventures work.
Right. Cool. You guys have other questions? I could probably keep going forever.
Yeah, so I guess just to sort of clarify, for a really basic understanding of tags, right? Without the flowcharts or anything, which I love, by the way, but without the flowcharts or without a lot of super in-depth stuff, and I use this term non-technically. So a tag is effectively just like a header or a folder for a bunch of game effect packages, which are what actually happen. So the tag doesn't happen per se. It's the game effects attached to the tag that happen. So even though we might only have, say, 100 tags, for instance, we could easily have 450, unique game effects that are all related to those tags.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And they can all do crazy different things. Like, a single game effect can have something that refreshes it, every year, or, forgets it if you don't do something every 10 minutes, right? Like, you could potentially have, for instance, like an OCD game effect, right? Where if you don't turn the knob on the door 50 times or something, right, you get some hideous madness reduction, right? But then if you go get a blessing or something, right, then it disappears. I don't know, but
right, absolutely.
Yeah,
And one of it's both cool for us for a couple of reasons. One of the nice things about the way that we do tags is that in your character data, the tag isn't there. What's there is just a pointer to the tag, right? Just a reference. Hey, this guy had, this tag, right? That data never makes it to your character, so you can never data mine your client where the packet's coming from the server or the client to figure out which tags you have. That's great for us because
they're encrypted anyway.
Right. It's great for us because we kind of don't want you to be able to sort of, meta mine the game for that kind of data. We don't mind you like compiling bodies of lore and stuff because there's already, thanks to tags, a difference between character knowledge and player knowledge, right?
Want you to, because that will build superstitions and player histories, and that's what we want to happen.
Right. We just don't want you to ever see the gear turn to make all that stuff happen, and that's what we're trying to hide. But another benefit to all of that being server-side is, let's say, for example, we did that Blood Moon Plague event, right? And that happened, 4 years ago, and it was great. And some guy who got the tag logs in, just like Tiz was saying. We can change what the game effect packages on that tag are without ever bringing the server down. We just change some data in the database, right? So what that tag used to do 4 years ago and what that tag does now can be entirely different, and no one will know. And this guy will log in and it'll be like, man, I feel kind of sick, right? But what actually happens is now he's been, possessed by like Naka, and every time he logs out to go to sleep, he rises again as a terrible, terrible monster, right? And it's all related to that same tag, and he has no idea. It's just he carried that disease for so long, it actually blossomed into what it really was, which was a manifestation of this god, right?
Right. And then we scatter around a bunch of markers and tags associated with that so that you can investigate and figure out why this monster is happening every night. Every time this guy logs out, his house becomes the lair of a beast,
Right.
Also, I may just do that to you people so that sometimes you own a home and then you log out, and every time you're not there, I'm making your house, the Hellmouth. I'm going to do that.
Right.
I'm going to do that.
Right. Yeah, but that's, we had kind of that question on Theory Forge a few weeks ago, I think, about the question or the concern was about people who don't log in for a while, and so their houses are just sitting there fallow, not anything happening. And I was saying, but people can still break in, people can do things, and
Absolutely.
Those can still become areas for people to adventure in, even when the person hasn't logged in for several weeks or months.
Absolutely.
Right.
And do you want people squatting your property? Because I have no doubt that as soon as someone figures out that that's kind of possible, they're going to try,
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've mentioned before, too, that if you needed to take some sort of extended break or vacation from the game, you could let us know, and we would freeze the house so that you didn't lose it for not paying your taxes, right? Freezing the house doesn't remove it from the game world, though.
Right.
And
right,
so,
that would be weird. Big hole in the world.
Right, well, and we're not going to, stasis bubble it either. So, you still run risks when you do that. But more importantly, if we did something like boarded up the house, everybody would know that you weren't there. You're bound to be logging into, a crack house the next time you play or something, right?
Yeah.
Right, something. My secret base for necromancy. Necrodancy.
I'm going to read off a question that we had real quick because it might have been related a little bit to what we were just talking about before. Legendary Neurotoxin asked, things have tags by default too, right? Like
Yes.
A weapon will be tagged with the materials it's made of, its purpose, over time, what it was involved with.
Absolutely. Actually, literally any object in the game can have a tag. Tags or flags, because they both have what we call the flag bank and the tag queue. And I guess we didn't mention flags earlier, so just to be clear, flags are tags that don't go in the queue.
Right. On-off switches.
They're permanent tags. They only get cleared or set via game effect packages, storyteller work, virtual GM work, exactly. So, earlier in the chat, John asked what happens, if I have a tag that is knowledge of Cthulhu and then I get, a blessing at a temple, which gives me a tag. Does that drop off? And the answer is it could if it was really a tag, but in reality, that's probably a flag. And so that's probably never going to get lost that way.
Right. And it would depend on, again, how actively you're pursuing whatever that information is. If it was a tag, then, if you're actively pursuing that, then it would be more fresh.
Right.
If it's
Exactly.
something you hadn't been pursuing for months, then yeah, it might be wiped out because you weren't
Right.
doing anything with it in any case. So
Right, exactly.
Well, and if you were
and-
to if you were to do something massive, like cook up the heart of a baby in the name of Hydra and eat it, I'm likely then to flag you, terrible, rather than tag you with baby eater, because that's baby eating is a big deal. So
changes you.
yeah, it really changes you inside.
yeah, so the cooking and necromancy might not give you a specific master profession skill, but you might get flagged as something anyway.
Could earn you a flag.
Okay. And Mother Rabbit asked witch/witchcraft tags. I'm not sure what the question was there. Are there tags for witch or witchcraft?
I think if you're really, really witchy and you've done a lot of witchcrafty stuff, and you're not wearing a disguise, and you go somewhere they don't like witches, they might notice. You might smell like a witch. That is, I guess it probably depends on how much witchery you've done, and then how extreme that witchery is, and then whether you've done anything to get those tags out, right? But yeah, we'll tag you for doing witchy stuff. I think more specifically than just witch or not, though, probably, witch of a particular flavor.
So I have a kind of somewhat related question. It's probably my last question, and it's kind of related to something Cheshire wrote in the forums this morning, I think, about blue versus red. Can you guys? And this was related to the gods, whether the gods are blue or red. Can you elaborate for us on your concepts of blue and red? Because I think that's still murky for a lot of us.
Oh, I think that's a Ombwah question.
So yeah, okay. Blue and red. Blue is more like, I don't want to say good or evil, because the ideas of good and evil are definitely something we want discussed and hashed out over many. I mean, this is the question of evil, right? This is not a solved problem, culturally or socially. So I think that's something we want to explore. But there always needs to be a place where the guy that has sullied his karma through evil acts or chaotic acts, or acts that are not conducive to harmony, can go. So like, if you're just a major troll, we're not going to screw you out of playing the game. We actually want to enable you to play the game in a way that seems all right for everyone else. So even if you're a murdering troll, we have gods that will take you under their wing and start coloring you that way. And we need there to be a place you can actually go and have a city and a home and all that kind of thing. So we have to kind of have a red city and a blue city at any time. But really what that means is it's more about permissiveness and strictness and order versus chaos, more than it is about good or evil. And the whole idea of whether a red city is good or a red city is evil, and what the extent of the laws mean in any place, is kind of something we would like you all to explore.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
I think the thing I used as an example there, it was the guy asking, what are the blue, gray, and red gods? And my interpretation of it all was, I don't think there specifically are blue, gray, and red gods specifically. It's more about your own beliefs, I guess. What is blue to you may not be blue to somebody else.
Okay, so I will admit that I have actually colored each god in my own private little book of notes. I know which are red, which are blue, and which are gray, but I won't tell you.
Fair enough.
For the reasons that you say.
Well, and it's interesting too, because it plays into the karma system. Like, what's good for one god isn't necessarily good through the eyes of another god, right?
Exactly.
That's another thing I actually used in my example too. I used the example of Hylathe and Hoenn, right? There may be you may be a worshiper of Hylathe, right? If you cast a detect alignment type spell to see people's karma, you would see what is blue in accordance to Hylathe's beliefs, right?
Yep.
and you happen to pass your spell happens to catch a guy who's a worshiper of Hoenn, and for some reason he shows up red to you. Maybe he's a traveler that goes to like lost ruins where you'll have like bejeweled statues or whatever, and he has a history of chiseling out those jewels.
Right.
You know, he's not doing anything bad in Hoenn's eyes. You know, he's traveling, he's doing his thing, right? He's going on these big epic quests. But in Halathe's eyes, he's desiccating art right there. He's destroying it.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah,
yeah,
Hylithi wouldn't like you wrecking her shrine like that. Hoenn might not care, honestly, in that particular case, unless it was a shrine to him.
Yeah,
Right,
unless it was his shrine, he might
he'd
be like,
pissed
hey.
then. That'd be no good.
Like, hey, bro, what's up with that?
But so how does that reflect? Would that be that in terms of color perception? Because to me, it would still be. I guess what I'm asking is, would Halathi be viewing Hoenn as red and Hoenn viewing Halathi as red, or?
I think they all have internal
specifically
balances anyway. Right.
Right. I think that. Yeah, I think the gods don't exactly look at themselves that way at all. It's more like they would view your actions as red or blue and grade them that way.
Exactly.
But is that in relation to themselves? So opposite of their beliefs is
correct. Yes.
So one of the things that we often say is that your actual karma score is the aggregate of how all of the gods believe in you.
Right.
And so if you take what Ombwah said, right, and he, where he mentioned that in his personal notes on the pantheon, some gods are red, some gods are blue, some gods are gray, right?
I've arrayed them into sort of areas of alignment-ish.
Right. So if you do things that a red god thinks are good, then you could, in a sense, see yourself as accumulating red karma, right? If you do things that a blue god thinks is good, you would then be accumulating blue karma. If you do things that are good for one blue god but bad for another, they might cancel themselves out or diminish or amplify the effect of the blue karma or red karma that you're gaining. And so your aggregate score is way more likely to be gray than it is to be red or blue, because not all of the gods, even among the same color spheres, have aligned interests.
Right. Though there are some things also that I just declare are red. For example, eating baby hearts, right? It's always going to be evil. Or not evil, chaotic red. It's always going to be no good to eat baby hearts. So there are some things that I just, hey, I'm sorry, man. My morality is the compass for some of these choices.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's the way I've kind of been thinking of it too. I think is that the red is kind of associated with the gods. It's kind of, that's how it's going to kind of, I'm thinking that's kind of going to be how we figure out what cities are likely to be red versus blue, which gods they're worshiping. And
again, a part of that is mechanical. A part of that is just so that, like in EQ2, if you went completely rogue, for a while there was no place for you to go. You couldn't be in either of the cities, and it was really hard. And also in Jumpgate, if you accumulated enough like criminality, none of the space stations would allow you to go inside, and now you can't regenerate your ammo or your missiles or your parts. You couldn't upgrade or anything. And we want outlaws to have a place in the world, because that way you can have both sides, and some people can be outlaws, and you can have a whole gray area of in between, but they need a home. So mechanically, we always have to keep some place they can kind of call the outlaw home,
Any other questions? Oh, well, we have a couple more questions, I think, in the queue. But guys, while I'm looking at questions, do you sail, Cheshire?
Yeah, so I want to jump back to tags a little bit, if that's okay. So I'm making an assumption here, and I'm pretty sure you'll easily identify what that is, but if I say the word typos, do you pretty much know what I'm pointing at? Which is to say, how, will the people, I guess the content team who are involved with actually developing tags and game effect packages for content, especially if it's on the fly, will they have a GUI to work through with, like, certain types of combinatorial checkboxes, or like, do they have to write everything out, and then is there like a spell check or a debugger that you guys?
Yeah, no, there absolutely is a palette that they'll choose from, and if they need to author a new tag on the fly, then that actually has to go through a system where the lead of that storytelling shift has to vet the work that they're doing before it actually goes live into the database.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you can sort of
massive catalog,
right? So you can sort of think of the shifts of each of the storyteller teams as being kind of like, the bridge of a starship, right? There's one person who runs the whole show, and he or she is basically overlooking everything everybody is doing, and like we're literally going to arrange the storyteller room that way, so that the head of the shift is literally looking over the monitors of everybody, and then there's a big view of the world on a main screen, and so everything that happens goes through, the pair or small team of storytellers that are working right then and there, up to that lead, right? And it's up to that lead to decide if it's okay for these people to take the action that they want to take next, so that there's always a singular gatekeeper to what's going on at the world at every moment. And those leads are the guys that directly report to Ombwah. They're sort of the writer's room for the show that is Revival.
Exactly.
I'd like to clarify.
And we should be running a couple weeks ahead of time with what we intend to be doing in the macro scale, and then we will also have a book of canned things that we can do given a particular circumstance, and we'll be like, all right, if this happens, then we're going to do this sort of stuff. If this happens, we're going to do that sort of stuff, and then it comes down to the leads, and hopefully we'll have stuff built out ahead of time enough that we can even test it in client and be like, all right, yeah, that's going to work, no problem. Set that aside for when they do that thing.
So I realize I might have phrased my question wrong, and I thank you for the answer that you did give, nevertheless. But more so, I don't know what the actual mechanical process of trying to write a tag and a game effect package looks like, right? But if I misspell HiLath and forget the E on the end, right, and everywhere else in the tag system, right, HiLath is properly referenced, right? But I'm trying to write some sort of cool new thing related to HiLath, and I accidentally forget the E on the end, right? Like, in that sort of case, right, dud tags or dud game effects, right, where there's a typo that just makes something not work correctly, right? Like, do you guys have a plan for sort of doing that, or will the system sort of innately not allow it based on, if it's sort of like, depending on how you set it up, I could see it not being a problem, right?
Clearly, I'll just rage, throw shit, and fire that storyteller. Right?
Damn, man. Well, you'll have my resume, so I don't make typos. Yeah,
no. So generally speaking, the tools will be designed to make that really hard to do. So if you're just trying to throw a tag on somebody, you'll be picking a tag from a list of existing tags. When you need to author a tag, though, you technically could mess up, and your storytelling lead is supposed to catch that for you so that it gets fixed before it goes into the data. But if it goes into the data, we can still edit the data in real time and fix it. So, it's not like misspelling a tweet. It's more like typoing a Facebook post, where you could go back and edit it if you need to, and then it'll start working. And yeah, that might suck for the, minute and a half, 30 seconds, 5 minutes or whatever that it goes unnoticed. But at least we don't have to like down the game and patch everything because, somebody wrote HiLatte instead of HiLathy, right? But
right, we should be able to propagate that fix really quickly. I have to say quickly.
Yeah, I guess, and kind of the reason I asked that is, I would be curious to know if there's sort of like a standard for how far forward the actual authorship part of tagging goes. Like, if I understand correctly, like when you have the basic, or not basic, but when you have like the relative suite of behaviors and sort of references and everything available, so that if you wanted to make some sort of item touched by a particular deity, then you could just do it like on the cuff, right? But for trying to author new actual, mechanical tags, right, is there a certain not forbearance, but like a certain distance, I guess, in time that you're trying to sort of maintain and keep it at arm's length, so that if you need to, check through the database to make sure that something wasn't misspelled, you have a day or two to do that?
Absolutely. I would actually like to keep my teams 2 to 3 weeks ahead overall, so that the only things that end up being at all crisis or fire situations are things that we didn't think of, that somebody just totally detoured and we didn't even see it happening and had no clues, So we'll try to set up a lot of alarm bells, and I'm trying to keep the writer's room 3 weeks or so ahead so that we have time to write and vet all of the major content patches and tags that we're throwing around.
Thanks.
Okay. Yeah. I had one more question about skill. Well, I have dozens more questions about skills, but just one more for today. There's a number of skills that allow you to have minions, pets, hirelings. All I want to know is just like an idea of how complex your commands to these pets can be, or minions, or hirelings. Like, could I, if I were a necromancer, could I have my undead go and harvest a farm? It might be an unusual task for him, but hey, could I do that?
It's cheap labor, right?
Could I, if I had a more intelligent undead, could I have it go scout an area, or even steal or spy or assassinate for me? Hirelings, same question. I mean, I'm not sure how you train an animal to do all that, but
so it's kind of tough. We actually have two separate challenges. So what we want is for you to be able to issue, orders on par with like a tactical strategy game, right? So we want you to be able to say, hey, I need you to go to this place. This is your goal, and I'd like you to try to accomplish it this way, right? And then have the AI, for whatever that actual hireling is, handle things from there. And there's an old AI strategy, that I think started in the original Half-Life, called goal-oriented action planning, or GOAP. And we're going to try to implement this to varying degrees of granularity based on the intelligence of the thing that you're commanding. So that if you say, to a zombie, hey, I need you to go to that farm, find Lady Truanne, and bring her back to me unharmed.
She's going to say brains.
Right. That zombie may go, brains, and then just wander off, and you have no idea what it's going to do next, right? But on the other hand, a hireling is very likely to know exactly what you mean, and they're going to go try to fetch this NPC and do their best not to harm her when they bring her back, right? The trick with that is, like I said, it's twofold. One is to make sure that the AI itself is capable of that level of planning, and we're pretty confident in our ability to do that. Though there is a pretty high performance overhead, which is part of the reason that we try to limit the number of minions you have at your command at any one time. But the other problem is the command interface that we give you guys, the players, to actually issue these orders, right? In a perfect world, we'd have some sort of like natural speech system where you could literally just, type, hey, go get Lady Turan for me and make sure she's okay when she gets here. And that would be great. But in reality, it's probably not going to happen. And so instead... Right, exactly. So instead, we have to come up with a system that is sort of, Mad Lib. Like, you'll have a set of commands available to you. Go to this place, attack, defend, fetch. Almost like you were writing a quest for the NPC in the old WoW sense. You know what I'm saying? And so that in and of itself, just the UI is actually going to limit in some ways the way the AI can perform as well. The level of sophistication does have a lot to do with the level of sophistication in the orders that are originally given to the AI. And so we're not exactly sure how it's all going to shake out yet, but we want you to be able to do things as complex as, hey, I need you to be here in the guild hall from 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday, so that you can take contract offers from people that come into the door and log them onto the job board for us so that we can review and accept them for the guild, right? That's the level of detail that we want to make possible. And so that's what we're shooting for, but it's not there yet, and so I can't honestly say that I know for a fact how that's going to play out.
That's it's really cool that you guys are trying.
High aspirations for sure.
I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how that all turns out.
We had a question that's kind of related, maybe, from John 1812. wondering if someone hacked the storytelling team's interface and let loose some destructive stuff, will there be a way to recover from that type of damage, rollbacks or something?
So we would probably have to roll back if that happened, but because of the architecture of the game, that person would literally have to break into our offices to do so.
Right. The clients are being designed with a key so that they have to be run from a particular place at a particular, like, we are taking quite a lot of precaution versus that, so that there really can't be anything externally affecting the world. You have to be in our storyteller room to be using a
security of that nature is, for example, why the actual data from tags and even the names of the tags themselves are on the server and never on the client, right?
Correct.
We don't want people remotely ever to be able to manipulate that kind of data. And so while somebody could maybe pull off the, Tom Cruise Mission Impossible thing where they come through the ceiling into the storyteller room, we're guessing that's not going to happen.
Well, and they could play the long con and, get themselves hired, though I will be incredibly discriminatory in my hiring, to make sure that I get the right person. But if somebody were to get in there and then get into the room and then become a storyteller and then do the long play to, do something sneaky or give their guild a bunch of stuff or something, they theoretically play it that way, but everything they do will be logged and you can be sure they'll get canned for that. I'm not, that's not what we're for. We're not playing favorites. We're a dungeon mastering team, or if you like, a television production crew making, the game of the show of Revival that you are all actors in with us. Do you know what I'm saying? It's not about us winning or us giving favorites to our favorite people on the planet. It's that's not what we're for. And our logs and our policies are all very strict about that.
We do data revisioning, though, so if we had to, we could roll back. It's just I don't expect that scenario would ever really play out.
Very neat.
We have some more questions, a couple more questions in the from chat. Donnie Ergo asked, you say there's so many things around gods, but can we just ignore the gods? Is that going to work, or...
You can, though, we're fond of saying you may not believe in the gods, but the gods believe in you. So denying that the gods exist,
that's funny,
isn't going to do much for you because they exist and they notice what you're doing and they have opinions about it, and that's going to affect your karma. But you don't need to worship anybody. There's no real requirement for that. Even as a magic user, you might draw from the power of these gods, and yes, your relationship with them is going to determine how effective you are, but that doesn't mean you have to show devotion to them. It really just means you have to do things they find useful.
Right. Acknowledge, even.
Yeah, honestly, to the gods, we're tools, right? We're Lego bricks, and right. So as long as the bricks fall where they're supposed to in the gods' eyes, they're going to be cool with that. And if they don't, they're going to be not cool with that. It doesn't matter if you care or not,
Yeah,
it's blow them up. I don't like them anymore. Just take them apart.
To Anima, you are, look at my art. Look at what I do. I create so much, and to Nodens, you're like, you're that stuff that Anima makes.
Hmm.
And then John 1812 had another question that his guild mates were wondering about. Will being in the same guild with someone who has done terrible stuff affect you to a certain extent? Should we avoid connections with certain people to avoid certain stigma as a result? And I think that answer is yes, and not just terrible stuff, but it depends, again, on whose side is looking at what, right? Terrible is going to be subjective.
No, you're absolutely right. And NPCs are going to have their own, sort of ethical frameworks. So they're going to look at, your actions and the actions of the people you associate with in a different light, depending on how they feel about it. So, the captain of the guard may hate that you're, a pro-labor revolutionary who sits out in the courtyard rabble-rousing every day. On the other hand, that beggar in the street's probably thinking you're a freaking hero, And for that matter, just by hanging out with that guy who's rabble-rousing in the street, people are going to think that you're like-minded because that guy's your friend. They see you with him all the time, and that will change how they feel about you.
Right. And as we said already, some of the more pervasive tags will be able to be applied to the people around you based on the things that you do. So if you're really, really terrible and you come in there into the guild on a regular basis, you might just get those tags by rubbing elbows, so to speak, by being nearby when the person expresses the tag, so to speak.
One thing I was wondering about, this kind of maybe tag related, if you're supposed to be a hero, I don't even know if this means that you're a hero tag. Maybe you're not supposed to be a hero, but maybe if the NPCs are thinking you should be acting heroically. I think an example we had from EverQuest Next was like we don't have orcs in Revival, but the example was orcs go by a barn and are trying to burn down a farmer's barn, and you could choose to either help the orc or you could choose to help the farmer, or you could just choose to sit there and watch, but the farmer's going to have a reaction to that.
Yeah. Where were you with that? Yeah, totally.
I saw you standing there and you did nothing, so that gets you a response from them as well. Are they going to be reacting to the stuff that we don't do as well as the stuff that we do?
It depends on the circumstances, but absolutely.
Yeah, it's down to how we build each event and what the team does with regard to what we're hooking and what we hang tags on. So we might have a farmer that's oblivious to the fact that you were there, but somebody who is more meticulous in their event building might, put in the attention to have the farmer note that you were there and hang a particular tag on you that is heartless or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Cool. We have one last question, I think, from the chat. What if the storyteller is doing something very interesting for 99% of players on a server, but a single guild will be very down with that event because it may affect their things, I guess, negatively? If they petition your team with the question, why us? What is your answer? It's the story. It's all about the story.
Yeah, we're gonna be. I'm sure this is the razor's edge we're gonna be walking at all times. Is how far is too far? I mean, it's a dungeon master question. When you've got your adventuring crew, do you just kill them do you total party wipe your party, or do you make it more exciting, or do you try to do something with the drama? I mean, this is the dungeon master's dilemma, right? And so I think we will try to take it into account. We'll try to be watching what's going on, and maybe we'll try to at least give them some bone, some way that they can, do something about it. Or, the point is not to screw anybody. The point is to involve everyone in an evolving, exciting storyline. So,
Right, but the point is
try to walk the line.
The point is also not screw everybody, right? The point is good story and reflecting what people really do.
Yeah,
and so for a certain number of those cases, I would even argue probably the majority, what they're going to get back is an animated GIF of some 8-bit sunglasses falling over our eyes and us saying, deal with it, because that's how the freaking game works.
Right. Hopefully we made it exciting and fun for you.
Yeah, but I think it's kind of like dying in Revival too. Just because you die doesn't mean that that's the end of your adventure, and just because you had these objectives that didn't play out at this time, that doesn't mean you can't try and pursue something different or
Absolutely.
come back later and yeah. So it's always.
I'll get you next time, Gadget.
We have a couple more questions. I'm going to try and go to for another 10 minutes. Go to the bottom of this half hour, unless Rose kills me. Squeeze in a couple more questions from chat since they're coming in. We've got John 1812 says, so basically when it comes to, I just lost the question. Hold on. Let me do this. Let's see if I get that.
I found the question.
Go ahead.
I found it.
Yeah.
So basically, when it comes to reputation with the NPCs, is it pretty much all about perception? Can you pretend to be a great guy around them and be successful?
Absolutely.
Yeah. If you can hide the things you do successfully.
Right. We're kind of fond of saying no witnesses, no crime. that's absolutely true for all of the atrocities that one can perform in our game, right? If the people that you're hanging out with have no idea that happened and nobody else does either, then they're not going to be able to respond to it. They just don't have the knowledge, so they're going to think you're great.
Yep, it's down to the virulence of the particular tag we build.
But I think the flip side is kind of, you might think you're a great person and the NPCs might not agree.
And be dragging along. Yeah, totally.
Absolutely.
I mean, your average Elder Scrolls character is a sneak thief, right? I mean, come on, everyone here has played Elder Scrolls, and what do? Hey, it's really easy to rob these people.
There, you would look fashionable with this bucket on your head.
Correct. You see what I mean? So, but you all think that you're the white hat saving the day, and maybe you are, and maybe you jump in there and you go Skyrim and you help the revolution or you help the whatever, and you're like, I'm great. Yeah, but no, you're a terrible person.
The world's cabbage farmers.
Smoking skooma and stealing everybody's shit.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think that's going to be part of the fascinating thing, is trying to figure out, you think you're this whatever person you are, and that's not always going to be the case based on the NPCs.
It has long been my goal to make a role-playing world where there wasn't the mustache-twisting evil god and the shining good guy god, because it's just too simple and it's just not my experience, There are so many levels of...
Right, the shades in between are where we
trying to be a good person or a bad person. I mean, what does it even mean? There's so much there and so much story and so much to explore that, they're wasting it.
So are you saying there are 50 Shades of Grey? Am I hearing that right?
At least.
At least. I'm pretty sure that Mr. Grey is an asshole overall, start to finish.
I think one of the things that we spoke about in EQ Next 2 was the concept of it's not only important what you do, but also how you do it.
Yep.
And that seems to be kind of a generic thing with this kind of tagging system, is that the NPCs, it's not just how you saved that farmer's barn, but how did you go about it?
Right, absolutely. If in saving the barn you killed their whole family, they're not going to think you're the hero.
Or maybe if we've been talking about necromancy, if you called up a bunch of undead to do so, they still might fear you.
Right, exactly. That would be fun.
No, but I was saving you.
What if the farm was under attack by bandits and all of a sudden my undead show up and kill all the bandits and harvest the farm, do all the work for them, and then leave?
They're good zombies.
It's only good zombies. They're here to help.
And where did you call them from? Did you call them from the farmer's cemetery? Is it their relatives that you called them?
Uncle Phil, no! You trade your ancestors for protection. I'm helping your ancestors protect you. It's a very simple thing. I'm answering your call.
Yeah.
I probably at this point have a history of killing bandits. That's free material for me right there.
You kill the bandits, raise them again, bring in the fall harvest, right?
Exactly. Totally be a good necromancer. Yeah.
So, Zyphilus Sulf asks if there are spirits and gods, I think he's asking, is there ascension to godhood?
Oh, yeah. This comes up. I'll let Ombwah answer that one.
There are quite a few people who have expressed a desire to strive for godhood, and I think you're free to try. You go for it. You go. It might be fun for all of us.
Mm-hmm. Okie-doke. I think that's the answer to so many questions with Revival. No matter how outlandish it is, give it a shot. Give it a shot.
But I can do it, right?
Maybe somebody trying for godhood is part of what caused the collapse of society, and if so, maybe you could do it better, or maybe.
That's too cliche.
Maybe you'll get it right this time.
Offense, right? No offense to your writing, but that's a little too cliche.
It is, but that means that somebody's going to go looking.
Because no one was trying to attain godhood.
maybe if they had achieved godhood, they could have kept the reins, kept the world on the straight and narrow and not fallen into destruction. Perhaps that's the case as well. But you will have to explore and see and learn.
Cthulhu was once an innocent human baby too.
You never know.
We don't know.
Could have been a totally different thing.
Cool. Any other questions from you guys? We've got maybe 5 more minutes, even though we're 25 minutes over.
What do we have to look forward to next week, Mr. Ombwah?
Next week, I'm writing a day in the life of a caravaneer. Thanks to some suggestions in the IRC, people were like, "Dude, what's it like to be a caravaneer?" And I'm like, "All right, I'll throw that in, and now you'll know." And then we'll have a little talk about manipulating economies and that sort of stuff that those people do. And that should be exciting. Plus, this caravaneer is going to be based in Valor, so you'll get a little Valor lore, which is nice.
Sweet.
Will someone die of dysentery? This is important.
It could
Seems like
happen.
they should, right?
Maybe they'll lose the caravan in a river, though probably not.
Attacked by Indians.
I'll make them type bang really fast over and over again. It's the mini game.
And we've got the update to the housing client kind of around the corner in the next week or so, hopefully.
Yeah, that should be any second now, honestly. We were actually hoping we could get it out on Friday, but mass select. So if you wanted to grab a stack of plates and you wanted to put them somewhere else, the only way you could do it functionally right now, because the feature is broken, is to literally pick up each plate individually and move them. And if you've ever played with games with physics systems, you know that trying to stack those things individually is basically a Keystone Cops movie waiting to happen, right? So we're going to fix that feature before we put it out. And so that's what we were doing Thursday and Friday, and that's why we didn't get it out on Friday. So it should be really any minute now, but I'm not going to give a date because,
Wait, so we're getting decoration already?
Oh, yeah, well, we're not going to give you furniture and not let you move it around. I mean...
Oh, okay. All right, well, yeah,
Hey.
sure. Cool. So this means we're going to have a Halloween house decorating contest, right?
We should totally.
We absolutely should. I'm gonna type up a list of asset requests as soon as I get back into the office now. Jack with a lantern.
Awesome.
Nice.
Super cool.
Okie doke. Well, I'm going to wrap up, or you can wrap up, Sail.
Okay. Well, yep. Thank you, as always, Snipe and Ombwah, for coming on. We love to have you. Super cool information. Thanks for all the clarifications you gave us.
Thanks for having us.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you, everyone, for coming out. It was
Happy
super
to do
cool. And we look forward to seeing you next week after we have died from syphilis or cholera or whatever it is that we die from. So we'll be showing a special Afterlife spooky show. So yeah.
Awesome.
Take care, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll see you on the flip.